strengthening Africa's pharmaceutical sector, challenges and opportunities. Before us, we have the panelists. I'll start with myself. My name is Joseph Mutasaga. I'm the Manager of Business Planning and Development, working with the National Drug Authority here in Uganda. I am also a member of the National Immunization Coordination Committee Task Force, and I'm also a member on the Presidential Investors Roundtable. We see a number of investment opportunities related to pharmaceutical. I also sit on the National Global Fund Coordination Task Force for Co-Payment System. I'm a body member in Kosu Rehabilitation Hospital, and also a former member board of the Uganda Heart Institute, among the others. So the experience ranges not just within National Drug Authority, but also from the water industry. But within National Drug Authority, we've seen a number of challenges and growth, which the panel here is able to augment looking at the Africa region. I will now give a few minutes to the members here to introduce themselves, starting with Sophie. Then we'll have also Abu introduce yourself, and then we'll have Idris. Please, Molly.
Thank you, Joseph, and hi everyone. Super glad to be there for this live Q&A following our panel session. I'm Sophie Moll from GS1 Healthcare. It is 4 years now that I'm working at GS1 Healthcare, leading the Solution Partners global effort, as well as the business development and the strategic partnership. Prior to that, I was working at the World Customs Organization in the fight against counterfeiting. So Africa was one part that we focused a lot on. I'm super glad to be there to answer any question you might have on GS1 and on the focus we have for the moment in Africa. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Molly. Idris?
Right, thank you, Joseph. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. It's really great to be here with you on the live Q&A panel session. My name is Noura Idris, and I work with GS1 Global Office as Healthcare Manager for Africa. I am based in Nairobi, Kenya, and I support countries that are based within the continent on their pharmaceutical traceability journey, to be more specific. I've been with GS1 for 2 years now, but before that I worked on multiple development partner projects. I was in development world, like I like to say, and I've worked in multiple countries in Africa and beyond on various pharmaceutical and supply chain issues and management information system. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Abu?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, wherever everybody is. I hope you're enjoying the seminar so far. My name is Jolly Abu. I'm with the medical support section of the Department of Operational Support in the Secretariat in New York. I work with the section that is responsible for supply chain for medical materials and services for UN peacekeeping and political missions in the field. I've been in the section for the past 17 years, and I hope that my contribution today will go a long way to achieving the purpose of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quickly, before I take you through the questions, the public and Africa and the globe has been asking a number of questions where they need the answers, and it couldn't come at a better time than this, where the world is struggling with a lot to do with the COVID-19 and now the new variant. Others call it Omicron, others call it Omicron. Depending from where you're located, you can give the right tag to it, but that is not the most critical. The critical aspect is how do we respond to the pharmaceutical sector in Africa, not just in light of COVID-19, but also in other healthcare commodities that are urgently needed to address the health needs of the African continent. I will start with you, Sophie. There is one question for you. In spite of the efforts of GS1, pharmaceutical fraud is on the rise in Africa. Can you explain what causes it, and can you give an insight into it?
Thank you so much, Joseph. I think Nouran can complement that as well, of course, because she is in the field. I think, you know, fighting against counterfeiting is happening in Africa, and there's a rise for sure, but this is happening in the rest of the world. So what we try to do with the global system of standard of GS1 is really to put in place traceability and interoperability of the global standards in order to be able to deliver the right product at the right time to the right patient, the sustainable price, all along the supply chain, and being able to identify the journey of the product. This is, of course, to try to comply with regulations. You know that this sector is highly regulated, and this is happening in Europe, and this is happening in the rest of the world. And our work at GS1 is really the global harmonization, is really to advocate the global standards so that none of the countries do reinvent the wheel with maybe a national number that the rest of the world cannot read. So really, in order to see and speak the same language. And this is something that we are doing globally in all the countries. I mean, we try to, because GS1 is a global standard development organization, and we are operating with 115 member organizations worldwide. So we do work like a federation. We are really helped by our member organization locally. And as for Africa, there's a particular focus, but I will give the floor to my colleague Nouran to complement that.
Sure, Sophie, thank you for sharing that. And maybe to add there briefly, Joseph, you raised a very important question, and I'm not going to repeat what Sophie said, but I think the countries themselves need to take action, and they are taking action already. I mean, just in the past 2 years alone, the number of regulatory authorities that have reached out expressing interest to want to know what GS1 standards are, how can they set up pharmaceutical traceability using GS1 standards has increased drastically. So there's definitely a lot of effort that is going on within these countries, and hopefully, really, that's my hope, that in the next few years, when there's more countries that have set up pharmaceutical traceability systems in their countries, then this whole issue of pharmaceutical fraud and other medicines would be curbed. And, you know, I like to also point to a point, perhaps maybe that was also mentioned in the presentation, that many of the countries, as you all know, in Africa are porous, right? So if one country makes the effort and the next country doesn't, then it's not necessarily really resolving the issue. So it really requires a collective action, a collective effort by many countries. We're seeing really a rise in this one. And then, yeah, I would just end there, Joseph, and hand over back to you.
Okay, quickly, I will throw one to you to clarify, Sophie. The fraud sophistication does not only focus on the secondary package, but it goes to primary packaging, tertiary packaging, and the secondary packaging. That even when you apply the GS1, the QR code on the secondary package, somebody will go ahead and try to counterfeit the tertiary and primary packages. So what assurance can you give to the African continent that GS1 has a solution?
So I won't say that GS1 has a magical solution, unfortunately. We know, I mean, of course, as you said, the data matrix that you see on the secondary packaging, which is really the standard that we're advocating globally, which incorporates the 4 attributes, so the global trade identification number, the lot, the expiration date, and the serial number is key, is the one we are focusing on. We are focusing on one barcode for every pharmaceutical product. And we are talking about pharma, but our work is not limited in pharma. We are really doing the work as well in the medical devices landscape. That is another fold, another challenge, other requirements, other deadlines. Of course, we have the UDI. GS1 is an issuing agency for the unique identification number. So this is coming and this is popping up. In the EU, we have this EU MDR, which has been launched, and the companies need to comply. So this is our focus, let's say. But we know that for sure the counterfactors are very smart, are very numerous, and can replicate some of those codes as well. So we try, and we will. There's a working group focused on the primary packaging standard as well. We're not there yet. We know that this is something that we need to focus on. But as you say, I can't say. I would love to do that. I would love to say yes. If you have this global standard and this data matrix on your packaging, and if you have a unique device identification on your medical device, on your syringe or the PPE or whatever, this will work. But we're not there yet. We just this is a long journey, especially in Africa. I think, as Nuran said, we need the regulation to be there. We know that this is leading everything. We need the government to be aware of that. I think this is moving. Again, GS1 is not magical. GS1 will really be able to help to improve patient safety, ultimately increase the transparency and the efficiency of the supply chain, because as a hand-to-hand from the manufacturer, from the production side down to the patient, and I insist in there, we are going down to the bedside scanning. We are leveraging that, and we are promoting, and we are advocating. Again, we can't do that alone. We need all the stakeholders, relevant stakeholders, to be aware of that and to embrace it, and we need to cooperate in that. But I agree with you, Joseph. And again, I would love that this is a magical solution. This is not. There's still efforts to be done, but we are leveraging this primary packaging identification as well. Just as
okay. Thank you very much, Sophie. Now to you, Mr. Abu Jali. There's a lot of disruption that has happened on the African continent as a result of COVID-19. What are the measures that have been taken by the United Nations, or what are the measures that should be undertaken to solve this supply chain disruption on the African continent?
Thank you very much, Joseph. As far as coordination of supply chain for pharmaceuticals in Africa is concerned, I think a lot UNICEF takes the lead here, and I know that UNICEF has a good mechanism on the ground to procure huge pharmaceuticals on behalf of African nations and effective distribution to an extent. We are in the case of the crisis we just had. We are still undergoing, and that is with the COVID-19. You recall the COVAX mechanism that was set up to coordinate access, equitable access to the COVID-19 vaccine. But whatever this kind of mechanism can be, I think it is time for the African continent itself to look inwards and look at how it can identify its potentials in conduct of researches and developing its ability to produce these vaccines and pharmaceuticals within the continent and ensure effective distribution. I don't think depending on manufacturers outside the continent coordinating massive researches and production and cold chain, and considering the vastness of the African continent and vulnerability, I don't think any mechanism you will set up will be able to meet the acute nature of the requirements on the ground. It is my personal plea that despite every effort being made by UNICEF, the WHO, and other organizations to ensure that vaccine availability in Africa is concerned, Africa itself has to look inwards, look at its academic institutions, look at its pharmaceutical industry, and begin to jointly collaborate in making sure that they strengthen the supply chain for these items within the continent. That's my contribution so far.
Thank you very much, Abu. I think you speak to the same point that Idris has raised, the issue of collaboration, where she has mentioned that if one country is having strong controls and the other does not have, it does not help. So there is that need for contribution. I thank you for that. But coming back to you, Idris, how can we collaborate in building this capacity within the African continent to improve our warehousing and also the logistics management system for public health emergency situations as these? This Omicron today is in South Africa, is being mentioned in a few countries here and there, but it's next to our door. Can you give hope to the African continent, Idris? That's
a very huge responsibility, Joseph, to give hope. So I think definitely there is, like I mentioned, there's definitely a lot of action that is being made by individual countries. I see that there's a role that can be played by the RECs, the regional economic communities, because that's a platform that countries that brings conversation, right? That countries can actually go there and talk and share and leverage on the resources. Not everybody needs to do the same thing or to reinvent the wheel, right? So there's that. There's a new initiative that has been going on in recent years, and probably everybody has heard a lot about it already, the AMA, African Medicines Agency. I see that also as a platform that regulators can really use that to leverage, use that platform to leverage the forum really itself, the collaborators. I mean, because there's been a lot of noise that's been going around there. That means there's also many people, many stakeholders that are involved in that conversation. And so if that tool can actually be used, I think that presents a huge opportunity for learnings, because I think that's the main thing, right? So if, for instance, Joseph, in Uganda, you've actually done something, if you're able to bring this back to the AMA, I think that would be an opportunity for another country, for the next country, to not make necessarily the same mistakes or to go through the same path that you went to. So if it took you 2 years, hopefully it takes the next country 1 year and the next country 6 months, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's many of those opportunities. I think we shouldn't recreate new opportunities, new platform, definitely leverage on those existing ones.
Now, turning to you, Molly, there is a question here in the chat. Bob Keating is asking you, or asking us, and I will put this to you, that you mentioned it is a long road for countries to optimize the potential that GS1 has. Is there a roadmap or use case that we can share with the country stakeholders to show what has been achieved in the neighboring countries for maximizing the potential? And he says most African governments and regulators want to see how others have done it.
I think this is
more or less, he is saying the same message that Idris has mentioned, not to reinvent the wheel.
exactly. And I think this is more for Nouran because she's really in depth in that, and she is following all these developments. So I will turn that to Nouran to answer.
All right. Thank you. So there's a resource that's available right now currently that provides countries a roadmap on how they can move about implementing pharmaceutical traceability using GS1 standards. I'm not sure how I can share that, but I will share this link, this resource with the organizers, and they can definitely use that. Maybe to come back a few steps and also to share with you what's kind of going on and around the continent with regards to pharmaceutical traceability specifically. Obviously, Ethiopia is at the helm. They have really taken many steps. They have regulations in place, and they're currently building their pharmaceutical traceability system despite of what is going on in the country right now. And there's many countries behind them, just to mention a few, Zambia, Botswana, that are also working on setting up their pharmaceutical traceability systems. So there are opportunities, especially within the GS1 space. Again, I will perhaps maybe ask the administrators, organizers of this conference as well to share our email addresses, mine and Sophie's as well. And through that, we're happy to connect you or to share with you a little bit more information about this, and to also maybe plug you into the conversations that are going on, especially at the level of sharing best practices and learning from one another.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that makes a lot of sense. If you share the information, please, the organizers here, prepare yourselves to share this information wide and large to the African continent. But coming back to Mr. Abu Joli, there is a question here from Ibrahim Bakiti Ismail. What are the precarious and corrective measurements for the localization of the procurement of pharmaceutical supplies?
You mean for the
localization? Yes, if we are going to procure these pharmaceuticals, what is the your roadmap, or how do you what's your plan in localizing this procurement? It could be in Uganda, it could be in Africa, it could be in but localizing it other than having it decentralized somewhere.
Yeah, again, I want to go back to my initial response to the challenges of availability of pharmaceuticals in Africa. I think the pharmaceutical industry is an industry that is driven on the wheels of research. Unfortunately, the African continent is located in such a way that most of the diseases that prevail amongst us is almost cuts across the entire continent, generally. I think the African continent must come together and develop its own internal strategy, okay? And I agree, the standardization that my fellow panelists talked about being passed from country to country, and harmonizing standards across the continent is critical. But the resources to build pharmaceutical industries may not be uniformly available to all the countries. There is need, therefore, to be more strategic in that collaboration, including financing of industries, production industries. As a matter of fact, most of the pharmaceutical industries in this country, in the world today, don't have any presence in Africa. It's time for the African government, the African community to start telling these industries, we want to see your footprint on the soil of Africa. We want to see you establishing your manufacturing line on the soil of Africa. We want to see you with huge warehousing presence in Africa, even if it means to regionalize it, or so that the access to this, the availability of these pharmaceuticals will be a joint activity between those industries and the African continent itself. The idea of producing from outside and to meet the requirement of this huge population of people, I think it's going to be very, very difficult if a unified strategy where the actual production of these things are concerned are not instituted in Africa. So I think for us to be able to have a steady supply of pharmaceuticals, even curb the issue of the fraud, the adulteration, the substandardization of products we are talking about, is to institute the production of these items that can overwhelm the efforts of these people who do all these clandestine activities to provide substandard products in Africa. There's a need for Africa to be very, very strategic about this, and not only at national level, at pure, serious collaboration. You know, look at the flight ban now on Africa because of Omicron. It's affecting all of us. But if we have our own internal mechanism to do researches for the vaccine and production of the vaccine and distribution of the vaccine, we will be able to curb this kind of image that the virus is trying to cause for Africa right now.
Okay. Thank you very much, members. And today's session gives us hope as the African continent.
Mm-hmm.
There are key highlights that have been made here. The issue of collaboration, not moving in isolation, knowing we are the African continent, we are living in a very small global village, so we need to work with each other. It shouldn't be only individual country effort without thinking about working with others. Sophie has talked about leveraging on, Sophie and Idris have talked about leveraging on the AMA, the African Medicines Agency, and the Regional Economic Cooperations, the RECs, to deliver the badly needed collaboration and delivering a strong pharmaceutical supply chain in Africa. They have also highlighted the issue of having a homegrown solution, looking inward, not just coping, but having homegrown solution within the African continent that can push forward the African continent when it comes to strengthening our pharmaceutical sector, including the investment, not only of the African companies, but also the foreign companies finding space within the African continent to invest in the manufacturing plants, but also putting up the logistics warehouses for pharmaceuticals to ensure robust supply. So sharing information is not is really not an option. It is a must if we are to move the continent forward. I want to appreciate all the participants here, the panelists, Sophie Mole, Idris, and Abu. Thank you so much for sparing this time, and thank you for the audience, those that have been able to raise the questions and those that have logged in, have attended this session. We appreciate you so much, and we wish you a very good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and a good night, depending on where you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.